The assignment. The gleaming spires of New Geneva's diplomatic quarter pierced the evening sky like crystalline daggers, their surfaces reflecting the golden sunset. Commander Elena Rodriguez stood at attention in the sterile conference room of the Global Security Council, her dark uniform crisp and perfect, just like her record. The weight of her neural dampener felt heavier than usual against her temple. "Commander, this assignment is unlike anything you've handled before," Director Mitchell said, his holographic form flickering slightly as he paced. "The Luminian ambassador's safety is paramount to these negotiations. One wrong move, and we could be looking at an interstellar incident." Elena's cybernetic eye whirred softly as it adjusted, scanning the classified files floating in her augmented vision. "I've handled high-profile protection details before, sir. What makes this one different?" Mitchell's expression tightened. "The Luminians aren't like other alien species we've encountered. Their empathic abilities are unprecedented. Even with our best dampening technology, they can influence human emotions in ways we don't fully understand. Hence the neural dampener upgrade." Elena touched the device at her temple. "The latest model, supposedly capable of blocking even the strongest empathic projections." "Correct. Ambassador Naira is particularly gifted, even among her kind. Your primary objective is to ensure her safety during the peace negotiations, but there's another equally important directive: maintain absolute emotional distance. No personal connections, no private conversations beyond what's necessary for security. The dampener will help, but your mental discipline is crucial." Elena's artificial eye captured the slight tremor in Mitchell's holographic hand, unusual for the typically unshakable director. "Sir, is there something specific I should know about previous protection details?" The director's hesitation was barely perceptible. The last 3 security chiefs assigned to Luminian diplomats were compromised. They became emotionally entangled, unable to maintain professional objectivity. One even attempted to defect. First contact. The first time Elena saw Ambassador Naira, her neural dampener went into overdrive. The Luminian stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of the diplomatic suite, her form seeming to absorb and reflect the morning light. Her skin had an opalescent quality that shifted between pale blue and silver, and what appeared to be luminescent patterns flowed beneath its surface like celestial rivers. "Commander Rodriguez," Naira's voice carried harmonics that made Elena's artificial eye recalibrate twice. "Your thoughts are remarkably quiet." Elena maintained her professional stance, hands clasped behind her back. "The dampener is functioning as intended, Ambassador. I'm here to ensure your safety during the negotiations." Naira turned, and Elena's breath caught. The Luminian's eyes were like watching supernovas in miniature, swirling pools of light and color that seemed to peer straight through Elena's carefully constructed barriers. "Ah, yes. The famous human solution to everything they don't understand, technology to create distance. The distance is necessary for professional integrity, Ambassador." Elena fought to keep her voice neutral as her dampener hummed against her temple. "Please," Naira glided closer, her movements liquid and graceful, "call me Naira. And you must be Elena." She smiled, and for a moment, the patterns beneath her skin pulsed brighter. "Your surface thoughts may be quiet, but your deeper currents, those are fascinating." Elena took an instinctive step back, her tactical training kicking in. "Ambassador, I need to maintain professional boundaries to ensure your safety. The schedule indicates your first meeting with the Earth Coalition Council begins in 30 minutes. We should proceed to the conference chamber." Of course, Naira's expression shifted to something unreadable. "Lead the way, Commander. Though I wonder, how can you protect someone you refuse to understand?" The walk to the conference chamber gave Elena time to strengthen her mental barriers, but Naira's question echoed in her mind. The Luminian walked beside her, drawing curious and sometimes fearful glances from the diplomatic staff they passed. Elena's enhanced senses picked up the whispered conversations, the quickened heartbeats, the subtle signs of humans responding to Naira's natural empathic field. Inside the conference chamber, Elena positioned herself against the wall, maintaining a clear view of both Naira and all potential entry points. As the Earth Coalition representatives filed in, her cybernetic eye tagged and catalogued each face, cross-referencing them against security databases. The negotiations began, but Elena found her attention repeatedly drawn to Naira. The ambassador's diplomatic style was unlike anything she'd seen before. When Naira spoke, the other diplomats leaned forward unconsciously, their expressions softening. Even through the dampener, Elena could sense the subtle way the Luminian used her empathic abilities, not to manipulate, but to foster understanding. During a break in the talks, Counselor Wei approached Naira, his security clearance file floating in Elena's augmented vision. "Ambassador, your proposal for shared technology is intriguing, but surely you understand our concerns about empathic influence in our systems." "Counselor," Naira's voice carried a hint of amusement, "your species already uses emotional influence in your technology. Your social media algorithms, your advertising, your entertainment, all designed to evoke specific emotional responses. We simply understand the process more directly." Elena caught the slight shift in Wei's expression, a mixture of discomfort and fascination that she was becoming familiar with. As she watched their interaction, her tactical systems flagged something, a slight irregularity in the counselor's breathing pattern, a tension in his jaw that didn't match his friendly demeanor. The rest of the session proceeded without incident, but Elena's instincts were on high alert. Years of security work had taught her to trust these subtle warnings. As they left the chamber, she noticed Wei having an intense whispered conversation with another counselor, their body language suggesting more than mere diplomatic concerns. "Your thoughts are louder now," Naira said softly as they walked back to her suite. "Something troubles you about the council meeting." Elena hesitated. Sharing security concerns with a protectee was generally against protocol, but something about this situation felt different. "Ambassador." "Naira. How much can you sense about someone's true intentions through their emotional state?" Naira stopped walking, turning to face Elena fully. The patterns beneath her skin had slowed to a gentle pulse. "We can sense emotional truth, yes. The disconnect between surface thoughts and deeper feelings. It's why many find us unsettling, we see past their careful constructs." "And Counselor Wei?" "Ah," Naira's eyes dimmed slightly. "You noticed it too, then?" His emotions were discordant. Fear and fascination, yes, but underneath, something darker. Something that tastes of hatred and old prejudices. Elena's dampener whined as Naira stepped closer. "Commander, I chose you as my security chief for a reason. Your file spoke of your efficiency, your discipline, your perfect record. But I saw something else in those reports, and capacity for understanding that goes beyond mere duty. I can't let personal feelings compromise this assignment," Elena said, but the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. "Perhaps," Naira reached out, her fingers hovering just above Elena's dampener without touching it, "the real compromise is denying them entirely." The device sparked, and for just a moment, a fraction of a second before Elena's emergency backup systems engaged, she felt it. The full force of Naira's presence, a vast ocean of thought and feeling that made her human emotions seem like ripples in a pond. In that instant, Elena understood why her predecessors had been overwhelmed. As they reached the suite, Elena's tactical systems were already compiling a new security assessment. She would need to investigate Wei, but carefully. If he was indeed harboring anti-Luminian sentiments, spooking him could make things worse. And there was another problem, one that no amount of technology could dampen, the growing realization that her perfect record of professional distance was about to be severely tested. That night, as Elena reviewed security footage in her adjacent quarters, she found herself repeatedly drawn to images of Naira, studying the flowing patterns beneath her skin, the grace of her movements, the subtle ways she influenced the space around her. The dampener hummed steadily, but Elena was beginning to wonder if some boundaries were meant to be crossed. Her communication device chimed, a message from Director Mitchell, regular status update required. Confirm emotional neutrality maintained. Elena's fingers hovered over the response panel. For the first time in her career, she considered the weight of a lie of omission. Status nominal, she typed. Professional distance maintained. The words felt like ash in her mouth. Rising tensions. The first sign of trouble came 3 days into the negotiations. Elena's morning security sweep detected trace elements of an unknown compound in the diplomatic suite's atmospheric processors. Her cybernetic eye highlighted the molecular structure, something new, specifically engineered to bypass standard security protocols. Lock down the suite, Elena commanded, her implants already connecting to the building's security network. Full containment protocol. The transparent barriers slid into place with a soft hiss, sealing them inside. Naira emerged from her meditation chamber, the luminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsing with concern. Elena? What's wrong? Someone tried to introduce a foreign substance into your environment. Elena's artificial eye whirred as it analyzed the compound. It appears to be designed to interact with Lemnian biology. Ah, Naira moved closer, her presence making Elena's dampener work harder. They're becoming desperate then. The negotiations must be progressing better than they'd like. Elena turned sharply. You don't seem surprised. Should I be? Naira's eyes swirled with colors that Elena's systems struggled to categorize. There will always be those who fear what they cannot control. Who see our empathic abilities as a threat rather than a bridge. Like Counselor Wei. Elena had been monitoring him closely since their last encounter. His communications, those she could legally access, showed increasing contact with known anti-alien groups. Among others. Naira gestured to the sealed windows, where New Geneva's skyline shimmered in the morning light. Your people built these beautiful towers reaching toward the stars, yet some still cling to the depths of their fears. The lockdown protocols meant they were confined together until Elena's security teams could clear the entire environmental system. Hours stretched by as they waited, each moment making Elena increasingly aware of Naira's presence. The dampener hummed steadily, but something was changing, or perhaps it had already changed, and she was only now admitting it to herself. Your thoughts are turbulent today, Naira observed, settling gracefully onto one of the suite's curved lounges. The dampener cannot hide everything, you know. Especially not from one who has studied humans as long as I have. Elena maintained her position by the door, professional distance warring with growing curiosity. How long have you been observing our species? Long enough to see the pattern. Naira's skin rippled with patterns that reminded Elena of stellar cartography maps. You fight so hard against your own nature. You build walls, both physical and mental, then wonder why you feel alone. The walls serve a purpose, Elena argued, but even to her own ears, the words lacked conviction. Do they? Naira rose in one fluid motion. Your dampener is functioning perfectly, yet you feel more, not less, with each passing day. Why do you think that is? Before Elena could respond, her security systems flashed a warning. Someone was attempting to override the lockdown protocols. Her tactical display lit up with access attempts across multiple systems. We have a breach attempt, Elena moved instantly to combat stance, her augmented reflexes ready. Ambassador, please move to the safe room. No, Naira's voice carried new harmonics that made Elena's dampener spark. I will not hide while you face this alone. This isn't a request, Ambassador. It's protocol. The lights flickered, and Elena's tactical systems reported multiple system failures across the building's security grid. Someone with high-level access was systematically dismantling their defenses. Elena, Naira stepped closer, the patterns beneath her skin now pulsing with a fierce intensity. There are moments when protocol must yield to necessity. Your instincts know this, even if your training denies it. The proximity sent Elena's dampener into overdrive, but underneath its electronic whine, she felt something else, a connection that transcended mere empathic influence. In Naira's swirling eyes, she saw not just concern for her own safety, but genuine worry for Elena. The security breaches were accelerating. Elena made a decision that she knew would alter everything. She reached up and adjusted her dampener settings, not disabling it completely but modifying its intensity. The effect was immediate. Naira's presence washed over her like a wave, but instead of the overwhelming force she'd been warned about, Elena felt clarity. The Luminian's emotional resonance enhanced her awareness, sharpening her already augmented senses. They're coming from multiple points, Elena noted, her tactical systems now working in concert with this new awareness. This isn't just an assassination attempt, it's a coordinated strike meant to disrupt the entire diplomatic mission. Yes, Naira's voice carried both confirmation and a deeper understanding. They seek not just to eliminate me, but to ensure no true connection between our species can ever be established. They fear what such a bridge might reveal about themselves. Elena's augmented vision highlighted movement in the corridors beyond their suite. Security Team Alpha is compromised, she reported, watching familiar signatures move in unfamiliar patterns. They're using our own people. Emotional manipulation, Naira's patterns shifted to darker hues. But crude, artificial. Nothing like true empathic connection. They've developed some kind of chemical compound to induce specific responses. The realization hit Elena hard. The substance in the air processors, it wasn't meant for you. It was a test run for this. She quickly adjusted her tactical systems to account for potentially compromised security forces. We need to move. They'll breach the suite soon. Where? Naira asked, but her swirling eyes suggested she already knew the answer. The one place they won't expect. Elena reached for Naira's hand, ignoring the surge of connection that the contact created. We're going into the city. As they made their way through the building's emergency systems, Elena felt the last of her professional distance crumbling. Each moment of contact with Naira, each shared insight and coordinated movement, drew them closer. The dampener continued its dutiful work, but Elena no longer wanted the complete separation it promised. They emerged into New Geneva's evening air just as the first explosion rocked the diplomatic quarter. Elena's tactical systems tracked multiple pursuit teams, their movements suggesting they were under the influence of whatever compound had been developed to mimic Luminian abilities. They don't understand, Naira said softly as they moved through shadowed streets. True connection cannot be forced or fabricated. It must be chosen. Elena met those swirling eyes, seeing in them the same truth she'd been fighting since their first meeting. Like I'm choosing now. The patterns beneath Naira's skin pulsed with an intensity that matched Elena's quickening heartbeat. Yes, she whispered. Exactly like that. Behind them, the diplomatic quarter burned against the night sky, a fierce reminder that some boundaries, once crossed, could never be restored. Elena's dampener sparked one final time, then went silent, not from failure, but from acceptance of a new kind of protocol, one written not in security manuals but in the space between stars. The betrayal. The underground levels of New Geneva stretched like a technological labyrinth beneath the city's gleaming surface. Elena led Naira through maintenance tunnels and forgotten corridors, her augmented systems mapping their route while scanning for pursuit. The diplomatic quarters' fires cast an orange glow through the few ventilation shafts above, a reminder of how quickly everything had unraveled. Director Mitchell isn't responding to any secure channels, Elena reported, her cybernetic eye processing multiple data streams. Either he's been compromised or he was never on our side to begin with, Naira finished. The patterns beneath her skin had dimmed to a subtle phosphorescence, helping them remain hidden. Your thoughts have been moving toward this conclusion for hours. Elena paused at an intersection, her tactical systems highlighting possible routes. He knew about the previous security chiefs who were compromised. He pushed for the strongest possible dampeners. Everything was designed to prevent genuine understanding between our species. While they developed their synthetic alternative, Naira's voice carried harmonics of sadness that resonated even through Elena's modified dampener settings. A way to control emotions without the necessity of true connection or empathy. A distant explosion rattled the tunnel walls. Elena's systems detected movement above, search parties sweeping the city grid by grid. She led them deeper into the underground complex, toward a destination she'd never thought she'd need to use. There's a secure facility ahead, she explained. Off-grid, originally designed as a backup command center during the AI wars. If we can access its systems, we might be able to understand the full scope of what we're dealing with. They reached a heavy security door, its ancient interface barely compatible with Elena's modern augments. As she worked to bypass its protocols, Naira placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. The contact sent cascades of sensation through Elena's modified dampener. "You're questioning everything," Naira observed. "Your training, your orders, the very institutions you've served. Wouldn't you?" Elena's fingers moved across the interface while her cybernetics processed override codes. "Everything I believed in might have been serving a lie. Not everything." Naira's patterns shifted to warmer hues. "Your core truth remains unchanged, the desire to protect, to serve something greater than yourself. They merely twisted that noble instinct to their own ends." The door opened with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a chamber filled with old but functional computer systems. Elena's augments connected immediately, sifting through decades of archived data. What she found made her blood run cold. "Project Echo," she breathed, scanning the files. They've been working on synthetic empathic technology for years, long before official first contact with the Luminians. Mitchell wasn't just part of it, he was leading it. The perfect weapon. Naira moved through the chamber, her natural bioluminescence casting shifting shadows. Control emotions, control people. No need for messy democracy or difficult diplomatic negotiations. Elena's tactical systems suddenly flared with warnings. "We've got company. Multiple signatures converging on our location." She pulled up security feeds, confirming her worst fears. "Director Mitchell is leading them personally." "Of course he is." Naira's eyes swirled with fierce determination. "This is his life's work at stake. The ultimate proof that humanity doesn't need aliens, that they can replicate and control our abilities without understanding the responsibility they carry." The first explosion rocked the outer door. Elena's systems calculated they had minutes at most. She quickly began transferring the Project Echo files to secure storage while establishing a defensive position. "Elena." Naira's voice cut through her tactical focus. "There's something you need to understand about true empathic connection. Something they could never replicate with their technology." Another explosion, closer now. Elena's augments highlighted structural weaknesses in the walls, calculating blast patterns. "What? This?" Naira stepped forward, placing both hands on Elena's temples. The dampener sparked and died completely as decades of security training screamed at Elena to pull away. She didn't. The connection that flooded through her wasn't the overwhelming force she'd been warned about. Instead, it was like seeing in color after a lifetime of monochrome. Every emotion, every thought, every moment of connection between them expanded into crystal clarity. She saw herself through Naira's eyes, not just a security officer, but a soul capable of bridging worlds. She felt Naira's own journey, the careful diplomatic masks dropped away to reveal a deeper truth. They were different species, yes, but in that moment of connection, the boundaries between them meant nothing. The outer door breached with a thunderous crash. Elena's combat systems engaged automatically, highlighting targets and calculating trajectories, but now they were enhanced by something else, Naira's empathic awareness flowing through her augmented senses like liquid starlight. "Commander Rodriguez." Director Mitchell's voice cut through the smoke as armed figures moved into position. "Step away from the alien. Your dampener appears to be malfunctioning. You've been compromised." Elena stood her ground, feeling Naira's presence behind her like a warm sun. "No, sir. For the first time, I'm seeing clearly. Project Echo, the synthetic empathic compound, the attacks, you're trying to start a war. I'm trying to save humanity." Mitchell stepped forward, and Elena's enhanced senses caught the subtle wrongness in his movements, the chemical markers of the compound flowing through his system. "They make us weak, dependent on their abilities. We found a better way. Pure human ingenuity. You found a way to enslave minds." Naira's voice carried new strength, harmonics that made Mitchell's soldiers shift uneasily. "To force connections that should only be freely given. Arrest them both," Mitchell ordered. "And increase the compound dosage for the security teams. We can't risk any hesitation." The soldiers moved forward, their expressions unnaturally blank. Elena's tactical systems highlighted their weapons, but through her connection with Naira, she felt something else, the forced emotional compliance straining against their natural states, like rubber bands stretched to breaking. "Sir," Elena made one last attempt, "the compound is unstable. You're pushing them too far. Their minds can't take this level of artificial manipulation." "Their minds will take what I tell them to take," Mitchell snarled, but Elena saw the tremor in his hand as he reached for his own injector. "This is the future. Controlled. Predictable. Human." That's when Elena felt it through her link with Naira, the moment the compound began to break down in the soldiers' systems. The carefully manufactured emotional controls shattered like glass, leaving raw, unfiltered human consciousness in its wake. The chamber erupted into chaos as years of suppressed feelings broke free. Some soldiers fell to their knees, others turned on each other in confusion. Mitchell screamed orders that no one heard, reaching for another injector with shaking hands. "Now you see," Naira's voice carried over the chaos, "why true connection can never be forced. It must be chosen, again and again, with full awareness of its price and its promise." Elena moved to subdue Mitchell, but her augmented vision showed her it wasn't necessary. The compound's failure had hit him hardest of all. He collapsed, decades of emotional suppression crashing through his mental barriers like a tidal wave. As Elena secured the room and called for legitimate medical support, she felt Naira's presence in her mind begin to soften, giving her space to process everything that had happened. The connection remained, but gentler now, like a warm hand holding hers in the dark. "What happens now?" Elena asked, looking at the aftermath of Mitchell's failed attempt to control the uncontrollable. Now, Naira's patterns shifted through colors Elena could finally truly see. "We bridge worlds. Not through force or technology, but through understanding. Starting with us." The truth of those words resonated through their shared connection, promising something neither of them had expected to find in this mission-turned-revelation. As emergency teams began arriving from above, Elena realized that some boundaries, once crossed, opened doors that no one could close again. And perhaps that was exactly what both their species needed. Hearts and duty. The aftermath of Project Echo's exposure sent shockwaves through the diplomatic quarter of New Geneva. 1 week after the underground confrontation, Elena stood before the emergency council, her cybernetic eye recording everything as she delivered her testimony. The chambers were packed with both human and Lemnian representatives, the air thick with tension and possibility. Project Echo wasn't just about weapons development, Elena explained, her augmented systems projecting relevant data for all to see. It was an attempt to replicate and weaponize Lemnian empathic abilities without understanding their true nature. Director Mitchell and his collaborators believed they could control emotional responses through chemical means, creating a false unity through forced compliance. The council chamber hummed with murmurs. Elena felt Naira's presence at the back of her mind, a warm constant that had remained since their connection in the underground facility. They had chosen to maintain that link, much to the surprise of both human and Lemnian authorities. The results of this hubris are clear, Elena continued, bringing up footage of the compound's catastrophic failure. Attempting to force emotional connections that should develop naturally led to psychological breakdown in all test subjects. Director Mitchell himself remains under medical observation, his mind struggling to process years of chemically suppressed emotions. Counselor Wei, who had been arrested for his role in the conspiracy, was conspicuously absent. His confession had implicated dozens of others, revealing a network of fear-driven individuals who had seen the Luminians' abilities as a threat rather than an opportunity for understanding. Commander Rodriguez, one of the human counselors, leaned forward. Your own neural dampener was disabled during these events. How can we be certain your current testimony isn't influenced by unauthorized emotional manipulation? Elena felt Naira's amusement ripple through their connection. With respect, counselor, that question demonstrates the same fundamental misunderstanding that led to Project Echo's creation. The Luminians don't seek to control our emotions, they offer us the opportunity to understand them more fully. Through my connection with Ambassador Naira, Elena touched her temple where the dampener had once rested. I've experienced true empathic sharing. It's not about control or manipulation. It's about choice, understanding, and the willingness to be vulnerable with another being. The Luminian representative's bioluminescent patterns pulsed with approval. One of them, Elder Vista, rose to speak. For too long, we have allowed human fears about our abilities to dictate the terms of our interaction. Perhaps it is time for a new approach. Elena's augmented vision caught the subtle shifts in the room's emotional atmosphere, fear and suspicion gradually giving way to curiosity and cautious hope. Through their link, Naira sent waves of encouragement. We propose, Vista continued, a new form of diplomatic exchange. One based not on artificial barriers and dampeners, but on carefully supervised voluntary connections. Commander Rodriguez and Ambassador Naira have shown us what is possible when our species truly collaborate. The human counselors stirred uneasily, but Elena could see the idea taking root. Her tactical systems highlighted micro-expressions of interest, of possibility, of desire for something more than fear and separation. There will need to be protocols, another counselor began. Of course, Naira spoke for the first time, moving to stand beside Elena. Her presence sent ripples through the chamber, but now the humans watched with fascination rather than fear. But protocols based on respect and understanding, not fear and suppression. What Commander Rodriguez and I share is proof that our species can connect without losing our individual identities. Elena felt Naira's emotions intertwine with her own, pride, hope, and something deeper that had grown between them since that first meeting. Their connection had become a bridge, showing both species what was possible. The council debates continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Project Echo's failure had demonstrated the futility of forcing connections, while Elena and Naira's successful bond offered a template for the future. Later that evening, they stood together on the balcony of the newly repaired diplomatic suite, watching the sunset paint New Geneva's spires in shades of gold and purple. Elena's cybernetic eye captured every detail, while her natural one remained fixed on Naira's ethereal form. They're still afraid, Elena observed, monitoring the ongoing council discussions through her augmented feed. But it's a different kind of fear now. Fear of missing out rather than fear of loss of control. Fear can be transformed. Naira's patterns shifted through colors that Elena had learned to read like poetry. Just as duty can be transformed by understanding. Your mission was to maintain distance, to protect through separation. Instead, you protected through connection. Elena smiled, feeling the truth of those words resonate through their shared link. I was supposed to resist your charm. And I was supposed to maintain diplomatic detachment. Naira's eyes swirled with amusement and affection. Perhaps we both failed spectacularly in exactly the right way. The new protocols were already being implemented across the diplomatic quarter. Voluntary connection programs, cultural exchange initiatives, joint research projects, all designed to bring their species closer while respecting individual choice and autonomy. What happens now? Elena asked, though their connection meant she already felt the shape of Naira's answer. Now, Naira reached for her hand, sending cascades of shared emotion between them, we continue building bridges. The Council has requested we lead the new Joint Security and Diplomatic Training Program. Who better to teach others about crossing boundaries safely than those who've already made the journey? Elena's tactical systems were already analyzing the possibilities, but for once she let them run in the background. Some moments didn't need augmented analysis or strategic planning. Sometimes the most powerful choice was simply to be present, to feel, to connect. They'll write protocols about us, she mused, watching the last rays of sun transform Naira's skin into living starlight. Rules about human-Luminian relationships, guidelines for managing personal and professional boundaries. Let them write their protocols. Naira's patterns pulsed with joy and mischief. We'll be too busy living them to notice. As night fell over New Geneva, Elena felt the last of her old training fall away. Her mission had been to resist charm, to maintain distance, to protect through separation. Instead, she had found a greater truth, that sometimes the strongest protection comes from connection, and the deepest duty can be found in opening your heart to possibilities you never imagined. The city below them hummed with change, with fear transformed into hope, with boundaries becoming bridges. And in that moment, holding Naira's hand while their emotions danced together like stars finding new constellations, Elena knew that some missions were meant to fail so that something far more important could succeed. The charm she had been ordered to resist had become the very thing that saved them all.